Hi, I'm Sophie Roth,
And I'm Rakia Johnson.
and we're going to bring you a new episode of
To a
Degree.
degree.
And today we're going to be talking about education headlines. There have been a lot of sort of breaking news in the last few months, and
Yep.
we just kind of want to dig into it and see, what do all the headlines mean?
What do all the headlines say? So, one of the big headlines of the day that came up was about early decision.
Yes.
Early decision.
And I didn't know that much about it, actually. I don't think I applied early decision to anywhere back in my day.
Well, I didn't, I'd heard of it. I didn't know it was that. I didn't know how restrictive it was. Like you can only apply for like one school,
Right.
with early
You're sort of
decision and
married to it, like betrothed.
yes.
Uh-huh.
So when you apply to a school for early decision, well, let me explain what it is.
Yeah.
So early decision is a little bit different from early action, where you're just applying early to schools. There's nothing binding about you applying for early action. Early decision lets students apply to one college early, usually by November 1st, and they get the results by mid-December.
Right.
So students know where they're going for their fall. They've been admitted and accepted into the school.
And this is usually people's like dream school. This is where theirs is their top pick. And it's a good way to sort of let the school know that you're prioritizing them and they
Right.
know that, vice versa.
Right. If you're accepted, you're bound to attend that school.
Right.
So early decision applicants must withdraw all other applications.
Right.
So that's it. There's no backup plan.
Right. If you are accepted, you have to back out of every other university.
You have to back out of every other university. This is the one that you're going to. You guys are locked. Marriage.
Yeah. You're engaged.
And our whole, our batch education, just marrying people and the way that
our philosophy, right.
You're committed to or putting the energy into getting that relationship, right, to your alma mater. That's what this is. This is a full, we're committed, we're locked in.
Yeah.
Right.
You locked it down, you put a ring on it, this is it.
So the benefits, obviously, research shows that applying that through early decision can boost acceptance odds by about 40 percentage points.
That's honestly really huge.
That's massive, which obviously would be a reason why you would do it. So you get accepted,
right?
Done, pish posh. You start you finish up the rest of your semester.
Yeah.
You finish up your final semester of college or high school.
Yeah.
Right. Many selective schools admit nearly half of their freshman classes this way.
Right.
Schools love it because it gives schools a guarantee to know how many students are going to be attending school.
Right.
For that fall semester. Now, here's where it gets hinky, or the issue comes in. The problem is, because it's such an early decision, the final numbers for tuition have not been finalized yet. Right. So you're committing, but you don't know how much it's going to cost.
There's not even a ballpark of what that cost will be.
I mean, at best, you can assume what it was done a year ago.
But even
last year,
there's a huge gap between sticker price and average tuition paid by students. And so that lack of clarity, I mean, you just can't go into something. You can't go buy a car and not know if it's going to be $100,000 car or a $20,000 car. For most people, that's not going to work very well.
So here's the problem.
Yeah. I mean, that seems like a big plot hole, right?
Big plot hole. So, of course, there's a lawsuit that was filed. It was filed in the federal courts in Massachusetts, and they accused 32 elite colleges of collusion.
Ooh.
Arguing that ED reduces their competition. So in theory, if you are a student and that sticker price does not matter to you,
right,
then of course you would apply early, and your almost chances of getting admitted are super high,
right,
which means that leaves out the students who can't afford it,
right,
basically.
Or they get sort of trapped in it, because what if they do think that the school will be providing them, handsome scholarships, and then at the end of the day, they're committed to this school, and the school does not provide them with a strong like scholarship awards. And so then what?
So you can, right?
Yeah.
So if for some reason the scholarship package does not work for you, that is like one of the few caveats
Okay, good.
where you can get out of the binding agreement. Now, mind you, it is a binding agreement. It is not a lawful, legal binding agreement. It is just a binding agreement between you and the school. However, what if it's on the cusp, right?
Right.
What if
That's
you
sort of
can
subjective. Right.
Right. And it's like,
Yeah.
is this enough? Right? Like,
Right.
are you going to be scraping by? Or is your family going to really have to figure something out?
Yeah. Or like the number 2 school that they applied to is
offering
throwing
something
money
better.
at them.
Right. But you
Right.
can't.
Right. You can't even get
because
there.
you've already withdrawn your application. So
Yeah.
it doesn't leave you options.
Right.
If you do, or like, yeah, this package is not going to work for me. Well, you literally are out for at least a semester, most likely a year. Right.
Right. It's pretty detrimental consequences to students in many cases.
Right.
Right.
So regular admissions deadlines have already passed, so it's hard to try to find and get into schools there. The lawsuit is alleging that this really gives the advantage to people with money, right? That you can go ahead and take the leap of faith, whatever the cost, you're going to be able to meet it, and it's not a big deal to you one way or the other. So it is really rather unfair. It's unfair to allow students to go into school, high acceptance rates, not knowing the costs. Now, the flip side of that, obviously schools love it. It helps them predict their enrollment numbers, fill their seats early. They know who's coming. They know what their revenue is going to be at minimum, right? So we admitted 100 students. All of them are going to pay $100. We already know how much money that we're going to be earning.
How much staff to hire,
how much staff to hire,
to let go. Yeah. There's a big stability factor there for the schools that are going to benefit from it.
So people are saying it's kind of like a modern day workaround and almost in a sense price fixing.
Right. If they're colluding, then it's very much price fixing.
Right, if they're colluding.
Yeah. The universities.
On the flip side of ED, what we also have found with early decision making, your alma mater.
Yes. Apparently.
Right. So
top of the headline.
A chief enrollment officer who apparently just really maximized early decision making to a point. Like I think by the time he left to go to another university where he's making 7 figures at this other, which is unheard of for just an administrative role at a college.
Unheard of. Yeah.
So like a president will make $1 million. Obviously coaches make millions of dollars, and coaches can make $1 million. It's questionable as to who's actually paying a coach, right? Is it outside the school? Is it?
We aren't going down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, that's a whole thing. But
staff
chief
they do not make
officers
those dollars.
Do not make those dollar amounts at all. Particularly at like a regular college. Like sometimes I think we were talking when I worked at a health science center. Obviously for some doctors, professors who are doctors who are teaching, they're taking a pay cut for a lot of times to come and teach.
To go from the public sector or private sector to public sector. Right. It's always a downgrade.
And even then they're still making, 200, 300K, right? Like as a professor. But again, a professor is still not staff at a university.
Right.
It is just rare
faculty,
to make this amount of money.
Yeah.
But the early decision making at Tulane by the time he left was like 60+%, 68% of their incoming freshmen that they knew full on like what their full revenue was going to be. And he didn't come from an education background.
No, and honestly, this was post Katrina, which I was there during Katrina.
Right.
And I remember there was this huge like increase in applications post Katrina.
Right.
I was like, wow, so people saw this city honestly destroyed.
And we're like,
oh my God, I want to go. And
there's a chance.
I could see how he brought quite a bit of value. He was some sort of like admissions guru.
Well, he was a numbers
value.
guy, an analyst. And so he was like able to like crunch the numbers and analyze them to the point of like, hey, we can really maximize the benefit.
Yeah.
Because ED existed before he got there.
Right.
He just figured out a way that we can use it to so much to our advantage that we can quantify what our numbers are going to be.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with enrollment and with admissions, you don't know.
Right. You can admit, let's say 1,000 students and then only 100 matriculate.
Right.
So the size of your pipeline, the top of your pipeline funnel to your matriculation really narrows down. And if this gentleman found a way to sort of make the funnel more intuitive, I guess.
Right.
So you knew exactly how many people would matriculate. That has a massive value for admissions
Massive
teams.
value.
Right.
Um,
However, there are, of course, unintended consequences.
So,
which tend to negatively affect lower socioeconomic groups and
students all around, right? Which is wild because the whole point is to assist students with their higher education.
Right.
So what they've done, he's no longer there. He's at a different university now. But what they've recently done was there was a student who dropped out, right, of his ED agreement.
Of his bounded contract.
Of his bounded. It's kind of like I was thinking like Lord of the Rings, but never mind. So he dropped out. And so they decided that they would not let students from his high school apply to early decision.
To punish the school for not enforcing a student to attend who was early decision. It's a really convoluted way to find a way to punish someone.
They don't say banned. They essentially ban students from applying for early decision. They can apply to the college. They can't apply early decision. But as we know, early decision, particularly at Tulane, has about an 11% chance of being admitted.
Yeah.
So you lower your chances of being admitted if you don't have the option. Right. But that student has moved on to whatever school that he was going to. Right. It's the next generation of seniors who were like, well, what did I do? I didn't do anything. Why can't I apply ED?
And this is alleged. This is also alleged. Going through the system.
Well, I will give Tulane credit for this. They did tell them. Right. And turns out it's actually 4 schools. 1 school is named. And 3 other schools are not named and also not really transparent as to why they are no longer
allowed.
Why they got the ban. What do they call it? They're not calling it a ban. The suspension. Why they're not allowed. So nothing is said. So that hasn't been transparent. But the fact that they told them is good because they could have just let them apply.
Shadow banned. Yes.
Right.
True. And who knows how often that might be happening in other scenarios, not the Tulane scenario. But we don't, you don't know the mechanisms that admissions team are technically using. And so what if you're, going to a school where somebody broke this contract and then your school is somehow deprioritized in the admissions systems. So that's scary to think about.
And you're
potentially
applying anyway, and then you don't realize or don't understand why your application couldn't make it. And it could have nothing to do with your actual application. So which is also one of the things I think is wild in this time of meritocracy, that we just would discount an entire class of students that had nothing to do with the previous issue that took place.
And it just gives too much power and subjectivity to admissions teams. And honestly, this is mostly like a very small group of selective schools.
Right.
Because there's a lot of schools who are like, anybody apply, anybody gets in, and they're not worried about it.
And I think for me, I love a good conspiracy.
Oh my God, this is great. Yeah.
Because then I was thinking, well, this doesn't really punish the students.
Absolutely.
It punishes the school and most likely the principal and the counselors. And then I started thinking, well, are the principals and the counselors, what's in it for them?
Oh, yes. Your new
so my
conspiracy
is, are the schools getting some sort of incentive to have students apply early decision at particular colleges? And what does that look like for them? Right. And if we started to look at the admissions for early decisions, are we going to see that they're a percentage higher from certain high schools?
Like, funneling to certain schools. I think you do tend to see that in high schools.
Yes.
But it's up in the air about what the kickback is. Is it prestige? Is
None
it
of
other
that
things?
Is a real thing.
Right.
I mean,
it
that's
could be
all conjecture in my brain. But
the fact that there's no transparency in that process would lead one to make assumptions of that nature. And if you can't show that absolutely that's not happening, well, then that's on them too, right? Like there are instances where schools are clearly using early decision as like a kind of weaponizing it, and that's not fair to students.
Right.
And also like really difficult for a student to like before you do you can't compare, right? You're not making any comparison. So unless you are 100% sure what you want to study, unless you are 100% sure about where you want to study that, and unless you are 100% sure that you can afford that and it's the right return on investment for you, you are contractually obligated in a way where they have a lot less power than the other side of the contract.
Right.
And so you wouldn't sign a contract where you're giving all of the power to the other negotiator, right? So to me, I see benefits for it, but there has to be a way to protect the students a little bit better.
Well, and you mentioned the contract. That's just it, though. It's not legally binding.
Right. It's a weird.
It's
right punishment consequence
system.
We're
all in agreement. We're in on this, but it's not. It's kind
Mm-hmm.
of like, to go to the analogy of like marriage.
Mm-hmm.
It's common law.
Yeah. Or like an arranged marriage, right? Like maybe your family disowns you if you break the contract.
Yeah.
But you're not going to jail. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to go to jail. Right.
Yeah.
Like
Mm-hmm.
there are some consequences to that are not, but it's, you're bound in some way, but to fall out of it, there's so many other negative consequences that you did not intend nor are you fully aware of, right?
Right. And 18,
but
like they're gonna feel pressured by what seems like a legal contract, right? Like I don't know, it seems like a lot of pressure to put on a very young person making a very big decision. So I don't know how I feel about early decision at this point. I feel a lot more negative towards it after reading all of these things. So
well, I mean, the lawsuit, in Massachusetts, that's completely separate from like everything with the Tulane and the suspending schools, and if there are shadow banning schools from ED and that sort of thing, it kind of sheds a light on it. At the very least, it's really a question of ethics, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So the other big headline that
headline
we've been talking about, headline 2. So we know that in this administration, things are very different. Department of Education. We don't know what the fallout is going to be, if any, really, for that matter.
Right.
So we're still like putting a pin on it and just kind of keeping an eye on different headlines. But one headline that we do know, because it ties into immigration, which directly, indirectly, would you say, ties into colleges and education when it comes to international students studying in the U.S.
Yeah, I mean, it's a major channel. Universities are a major channel of immigration into the U.S.
Correct.
So, and it is a massive billion-dollar industry for universities in a time where universities are somehow, contracting financially.
Right.
So any sort of dip in the international enrollment has a much larger effect overall in higher education.
For sure. Also, and I think people forget this because we worked with a lot of graduate international students.
Correct.
They didn't live on campus. They affect a city as well. So we're talking about like housing in that city, groceries in that city, cars, driving. Like the city is affected by and if you're in a small town, a small college town, you take out 250 students from your student population, it affects the whole town.
Yeah. It's a positive infusion of like direct money. Yeah. For the town, for the college, for a lot of different things.
Right. So there's International Institute of Education, IIE. They put together every year what's called an Open Doors report, and they kind of survey all of the colleges in the United States, and they look at everything related to international education. And the survey also looks into international students and scholars studying or teaching at higher education institutions in the United States. So they're looking at all of international education, not just students that are attending here, but also scholars who come over to teach here, as well as international or U.S. American students who study abroad. So they're looking at all
the big picture.
Yeah. And so they kind of put out a snapshot. They do this thing called Open Doors with their full survey and data, and that comes out a lot later in the year. And it costs to get all of that information. It's a huge deal in the international education world. So, but they have their fall 2025 snapshots on international education, and this really just dropped about a couple of weeks ago, late mid-November. And colleges are reporting that they're noticing a 1% decline in the total number of international students, including enrolled and optional practical training, which is OPT. So OPT, as you know, gives international students the opportunity to opt in or opt out of working in the United States as a part of their student visa that gives them a year after they finish their degree to work in their field of study in the U.S.
Yeah, 1 to 3 years depending on the
1 to 3 years
area.
depending on the area.
Yeah. Which then can also lead to more full-time employment
H-1Bs.
through the H-1B visa.
Right.
So it's really like a track for students to start working and contributing in the U.S. economically. And
that extension, that 3-year one, are areas where we're low.
Right, where the U.S. needs an infusion of workers.
Hence, they get
like
the
science
time.
Fields, right? And so we give them the opportunity to stay a little bit longer if they choose to.
Exactly. And again, that is, they have to file for it. There's a cost in filing for it. And they have to work towards the extension if they want it. Again, it's optional. They can opt in or out. And most students do. I've had a handful of students who are like, yeah, I'm going to go home. I know, like some of the students like, no, my dad has a business. I'm just going to pop back and go work with my dad.
And it is a wonderful contribution to both parties. So the
it's
U.S.
a great
gets
incentive to have students come to the U.S.
Exactly. We get very, well-educated, well-trained students who are contributing to the U.S. economy and productivity and everything like that. And they get the opportunity to work here and build their experience in their resume. And then if they, choose to, they go home with that experience. So it is it's a net positive program, I believe.
And again, we're looking at, think about all of the international students. So we're also doctoral students, researchers that are here and doing things. Again, when I worked at Health Science Center, they were doing some really amazing things at that doctoral research level.
These are like brilliant minds.
Right.
And we're getting a net benefit from them being here.
Absolutely. I had a professor, she was from Poland. And she was one of the few scientists in the world who was working on a project reconciling families who may have been victims of child sex trafficking.
Oh, wow. Or just separated from their families.
They were separated from their families in some way. And so she was working on this big, huge DNA project.
So cool.
That they could match families together anywhere in the world. That's incredible. Yeah. That's exceptional. And to think that was happening in Fort Worth, Texas as well.
Yeah.
But
from a Polish scientist. And wow.
And it was very interesting. Like she would talk about some of the things that she would encounter as this very petite, pretty woman in science. It's so wild. Anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. So that 1% drop isn't unusual. It's actually a fairly a good number, to be honest, but because it's currently students who are enrolled who may not matriculate into the next semester.
Who have enrolled within the last 4 to 8 years, right? Because they could have come in undergrad and stayed for grad school. So there could be a long trajectory for those students.
But the big hit is new enrollments.
Correct.
New enrollments, which is a subset of total enrollments, decreased by 17%. So schools saw a net loss of 17% students who did not come to the United States to study for this current fall.
That is a big number.
Big number.
Right. And we're talking about billions of dollars of loss from just the 17% drop in admissions this year for international students, or within the last year.
For this swath that they're looking at, again, this is just a snapshot. Approximately 29% of institutions report an increase in their new international student. 14% said they stayed the same, and it's at 57% that they saw a decrease. And again, that's a massive hit.
Right. So there's a subset of schools that are probably still getting it. I'm assuming, the elite universities. So even if there's a risk to you coming to study in the US, if you're getting accepted by, an Ivy League school, you might be willing to take that risk versus like if you got into a mid-tier school, but you also got into some other schools abroad, you might think, the risk is not worth the attendance there. So
and then, but we start getting into some really weird things that the school nor the student has any control over, which is also obtaining a visa. Right?
Yes.
So they saw nearly 3/4 of schools, 72% of institutions are offering international student deferrals to spring of 2026.
Wow.
Likely not being able to get a visa in time. And so then you have to defer your enrollment. And more than half are providing deferrals to fall of 2026.
Yeah. Which they do not normally do.
Also, are you waiting? Are you going to wait? Or you're going to go to another school someplace else?
I mean, most likely. This is just kind of a way for the universities here, I guess, to hook them and hope that the political rhetoric maybe stabilizes a little bit in terms of how we're approaching international students. And so maybe they're just waiting for things to cool down.
But that's asking them to wait a full year. Right. And so I'm sure some of those are graduate students. And with some grad students, they're coming over, they're a little bit older, they may be working in their home country. So it's, a year is not that big a deal in the long term.
Yeah.
But for undergrads,
no, they're not going to. They shouldn't. Honestly, I don't think they would.
But yeah, why would you? Why would you? It's particularly if you can apply and get admitted to another school and other places.
And
why wait?
There are so many good universities outside of the U.S. that are equivalent and that are teaching programs entirely in English. And so to think like the U.S. is the only receptor country for international students is such a naive approach. So these schools that might think a student will wait 1 year to get in here, no, they have a lot of options.
What I also find to be ironic about it, so about 84% of schools say that they international recruitment is still a high priority for them. So to have these numbers are in such a way 56% are seeing a dip, that's an issue, right? Because then you're trying to recruit and then it's hard to recruit. It's obviously working for some schools as they saw some increase. The top countries that we're seeing students come in from, or at least where colleges and universities are focusing on graduate, where would you like to guess?
Well, I thought it would be the main ones, but, India, China are obviously year over year always the top ones. Outside of that, I don't know.
India and China are on that priority list, which not a shock. Right?
Nope.
We've seen that before. But two that I was shocked to see was Vietnam and Bangladesh.
Yes. So I've heard that Southeast Asia is a new really big kind of destination for admissions who are going over there to try to recruit students.
So there you go. Those are some of the snapshots there. And then lastly, do you want to talk a little bit about professional degrees and what happens with the big, beautiful bill that it's officially passed, right? And basically caps student loans. Right.
For graduate degrees. And it's basically semantics, I think, right? But it's so I wanted to talk about it in the historical context because this is a major shift away from what we historically prioritize as a society, which is expanding access to education. And so even in, this started around the baby boomer generation, that the U.S. government began to sort of subsidize or protect loans for students, higher education students. And so there was this huge expansion where not just wealthy, kids from wealthy families could go to universities. These were loans meant to facilitate, working class
and
families.
To give access.
Yes.
So I know we talked about before when we talked about the history of women in higher ed.
Right.
And the policies between the GI Bill.
Yes.
That afforded women the opportunity to go to school. The Civil Rights Act, which expanded women, the right to vote, expanded for women, the 19th Amendment, expanded the access for women to go to college.
Right.
This essentially
It's like reversing.
reversing it.
It is reversing it. And this is, again, the historical context. This was started around the baby boomer generation. They benefited greatly from the access to these, cheap student loans. We have been seeing an erosion in how student loans work, because for a long time there was a much bigger portion of this like government money going towards grants, which grants don't have to be paid back. And so more students received a bigger percentage of their like awards from grants.
Right.
Then that was eroded away, and we shifted more towards just quote low interest loans, sort of. And so now a heavier burden on each individual student were loans rather than grants, right? So a lot of students would receive Pell Grants. I received a mix of grants and loans. However, I had a lot more loans than I had grants. And that was a shift in that sort of Gen X millennial generation. And now we're shifting even further away. And now we're capping loans where we know very well that these graduate programs in particular are going to be costing at least double what this cap is. And so what is essentially a consequence of reframing professional degrees is that there's going to be an entire series of professionals who are not going to be able to access university because now we've capped how much they can borrow to study. And if you really look at it and you really analyze it, the majority of the degrees that were removed from the professional list are predominantly, fields where women go into.
Right.
And that has to be intentional. I just refuse to give anybody the benefit of the doubt. We made a very clear distinction on, oh, wow, there's a lot of women in college. Oh, wow, these are the fields that they're mainly in. Oh, we're going to go ahead and slash the access to those particular programs.
Right.
And I didn't see a good explanation behind why. Why are we doing a shift historically away from that? If there was a why, I didn't have, like, I didn't see it.
Right.
So you're just doing this arbitrarily. You know it's going to affect women. And honestly, like, a lot of people of color as well in these fields. It also is going to limit, down the line, health equity, because a lot of the fields were like, social work, nursing, therapy, physician's assistant. I mean, so many of them were related to health. And I was like, I thought we had like a shortage. Didn't we have a shortage of nursing?
Right.
So now what are we doing? We're going to limit access for students to study, to become nurses?
And it's such a weird thing in general, I think, particularly for nursing and healthcare, because we really do gatekeep.
Oh, correct.
Physicians, right?
Yeah.
Like the education surrounding who can become doctors. Look into your state and see what the state requirements are for people to, or for the number of colleges that can even offer in your state to offer.
They cap admissions.
So
even if they
cap the number of schools that can offer a doctoral degree.
Right.
You have to go to, in the state of Texas, I remember when Michael Dell was opening the medical school here in Austin, you go to the Texas state legislature, and you request the ability to do that.
Right.
So and then they make dictations. I remember Health Science Center, they had to go to the state to allow the president of UNT Health Science Center to not be an actual medical doctor as well.
Right.
Like the state dictates those things, which is wild, right? They don't dictate things like that for
like
anyone
lawyers.
else.
Yeah, no.
Right, like for other professions.
Right.
But for medical, they do. And so when you start to look at that and pulling those strings, it's like, well, what's...
You're bottlenecking all of the professions.
Right,
yeah.
Right.
And especially in a moment where we very much need more of this field. And so I'm just so disappointed. And like, even historically, this isn't what we've stood for. After World War II, there was a big push, and it was sort of like that, Cold War era, where it was like, it is a national security issue to have an educated populace.
Yeah.
That is important for national security. Do you think in, China and in other countries that are sort of our competitors, do you think that they want less people to be educated? No, they push education so hard.
It's actually like for a lot of Chinese students, U.S. education, higher ed is kind of their safety school.
Yeah. They're like, what a breeze.
Hard. Yes.
Yeah.
There are students who will say, oh, I went to school in China and then we moved to the U.S. And I was like, oh.
It's a very rigorous.
It's extremely rigorous. And
Right.
a lot of other countries. And so it's just not that the U.S. cannot compete, because we 1,000% can.
Absolutely.
But what our society doesn't do very well is give opportunities to everyone. It's not.
Right. And it did historically prioritize that. It did push for an educated population. It did push for expanded access.
Right.
And we have
Top
slowly
talent is
been regressing there. And that doesn't seem like a good long-term strategy,
Right.
both in terms of national security, in terms of like health access. There are so many consequences that these small semantic changes can have down the line. I just don't understand why people are not, there's not a group of people, a think tank of people going, this feels like long term wouldn't give us what we'd like, wouldn't give us benefits long term.
Yeah.
And so I'm like the most disappointed, I think, with that news. There's a lot of things to look at, where it's a little more vague, but I just don't see any
like how there's
potential positive
around this.
Right.
Like what would be a pro?
Why did we do this? What's the benefit of doing it?
Right. And not to mention, if is an issue of loan money and student loans,
we're already in a crisis there.
We're already in a crisis, but what other countries do is they cap tuition, not cap the loan for the student. Like the burden's on the school, not the student. So it's like, well, we also resolve the problem in reverse.
Right. Also, our little 2-person think tank here has solved it.
Right.
Why aren't we?
You know who else solved it? Most countries.
Most developed countries. Correct.
We didn't come up with a new idea. It just already existed.
Yeah.
We've seen it work before,
right.
And it's done well. But
it's frustrating.
Also, yeah. So,
but the U.S. still has a very robust education system.
Yes.
And I think part of what we're doing with Batch is we really want to educate students and educate families about all of their options.
Right.
Because I think sometimes we think in a very narrow way about which universities are good, which ones are, a better ROI, and geographically we're very narrow-minded about that. And what our technology gives students is the ability to explore outside of these like smaller boundaries. And so I'm excited about what we're doing. I think there's not really been a better time
it is a really great time. I don't think people, I wasn't aware of the number of English taught degrees in Germany.
Right.
Like, it's wild.
Right.
And when you start thinking about if we're going to cap the loan money, and that's particularly at the bachelor's degree, we're not seeing that at the, that's at the master's degree, not at the bachelor's degree. Mm-hmm. So bachelor's degree borrowing would still be the same for now, as far as we know.
But I think now a bachelor's degree does not buy you the sort of the marketability anymore that a master's does. When I had my bachelor's degree, it got me a job, but it didn't get me a career. Until I received my MBA, I did not have like a very, high ceiling, I guess. I don't know how to explain that, but just like I felt much more secure once I had a lot more opportunities.
Sure. I would say the same for once I earned in fact, I remember thinking, I'm going to have to get a second degree if I really want to earn more money.
Yes.
Or a sex change.
Yeah.
We might have to edit that part out.
Yeah. Edit.
But yeah, I think it is a good time for Batch to really open horizons, what people can do, and to think that you can go. I mean, we're seeing the same thing with medicine. People are going to other countries to get medical work done. because they're
Is it
finding
like
it.
medical tourism?
Medical tourism
Yeah.
is a thing.
We're going to do degree tourism, maybe.
degree tourism, right? Like, or
Yeah.
just opening your eyes up to the fact that, hey, I can get a degree in a different country in English that's just as prestigious as what I would get at home, and maybe even cheaper.
Yeah. And, you know, think about the big picture, right? You can get a bachelor's degree here if you get, you know, really good funding. And then what do you do for your graduate degree? Now
Right.
they're deprioritizing certain bachelor's. Go study social work in English in Germany.
Yeah.
Learn how other countries are really approaching social work, because, and then bring it back here if you want, you know?
Right.
So
right.
there are so many options. I'm the most excited about that feature of what Batch is going to give students, because it's really going to, like you said, open horizons.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about everything.
Yeah. Same.
All right.
Well, that's it for us
Yeah.
for right now. To a degree, episode this one.
Headlines episode.
Headlines episode, all done.
Great. And we'll see you at the next one.
All right.
Bye.